The legal definition of treasure could be broadened by UK legislators in a bid to help museums acquire important historical artefacts. The wording of the law could be changed after an increase in the number of metal detectorists unearthing items of historical significance. Arts and Heritage Minister Lord Parkinson said the proposed changes would apply to the legislation known as the Treasure Act 1996. He said some artefacts have been lost to private collectors rather than being displayed publicly in museums due to the existing wording of the law. Under the current definition, an item is classed as treasure if it is at least 300 years old and made at least in part of precious metal like gold, silver, or part of a hoard. The proposals would mean that this will be amended to cover exceptional finds of at least 200 years old, regardless of the type of metal they are made of. If a coroner rules a find as meeting the legal definition of treasure, it can be acquired by a museum rather than sold privately to the highest bidder. Lord Parkinson said the Treasure Act has saved around 6,000 objects which have been shared with museums, more than 220 museums around the country, but at the moment the definition of treasure is very specific, he added. An item has to be more than 300 years old. It has to be made of a precious metal or part of a hoard, Lord Parkinson said. We want to widen that so other important objects don't fall through the net. We're proposing to change the law to make the definition something that is more than 200 years old, to say it can be made of any type of metal, but also bringing in a new test of significance. So to say if this is an item which is significant to part of local, national or regional history, or if it's connected with a particular individual or event, then it can be classed as treasure too, and it can be shared with the public in a museum. He mentioned the example of the Crosby Garrett Roman cavalry helmet discovered near Penrith in Cumbria as an example of an artefact sold to a private bidder, as it did not meet the current definition of treasure. He said it was made of metal but not of precious metal, so it wasn't classed as treasure under the current definition. We want those sorts of items to be shared. He added, most of the finds of treasure are by detectorists, so we're seeing more objects being discovered, and we're seeing more examples of things that don't currently meet the definition being lost or being at risk of being lost to the public. We want to make sure that they can be saved for museums. Chelmsford Museum in Essex has a Roman figurine on display that does not meet the current definition of treasure, but was saved by a different mechanism. Lord Parkinson said the copper alloy piece discovered in Roxwell, Essex, wears a hooded cloak known as a Birrus Britannicus that people wore in Roman Britain. It tells you about the weather at the time, it tells you about fashion, it tells you about exports from Britain into the Roman Empire, he said. These sorts of objects should be shared with people in museums so they can inspire future generations. Sarah Harvey, a curator at Chelmsford Museum, said that because the Roman figurine is made of copper alloy, it did not count as a precious metal. She said that the finder, a detectorist, was planning to sell it abroad, and the museum had to go through quite a lot of administrative steps to keep it in this country. With this new definition of treasure, we won't have to go through all those steps. We would have the first rights to acquire that sort of item, she said. So what do you think of the proposals? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.